everybody, and welcome. We're so happy you've joined us today. For those I'm meeting for the first time, my name is Rod. I'm joining you from Manila. I'm the community choreographer at Pollinate Impact, where I get to create spaces like this for incubators, accelerators, and ecosystem builders like investors to learn from one another, exchange ideas, and tackle shared challenges together. And to our returning pollinators, I see a few Pollinate members. It's wonderful to see you again. All right, next slide, please, Azan. Thank you. If you're new to Pollinate Impact, consider this your invitation to join our growing community of impact incubators and accelerators from across the global South. Throughout the year, we host sessions like this, share practical tools, funding opportunities, office hours, and create spaces where members can learn with, not just from one another. If that sounds like your kind of community, we'd love to have you. And the membership link is waiting for you here on the screen, and we'll also send it through the chat. So consider this a sign to join us if you haven't yet. All right. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Today also marks something exciting for us because it's part of a brand new series we're launching over the next few months called Pathways to Financial Resilience. One thing we've consistently heard across the network is that financial sustainability isn't a single challenge with a single solution. It's about fundraising, about partnerships, organizational strategy. It's about telling your story well. It's about making difficult decisions while staying true to your mission. So from this month to September, we'll be exploring financial resilience from many different angles through conversations like this one, sharing practical tools, shared experiences, and opportunities to learn directly from one another. And today's just the beginning. So we're really excited, and we hope that you can join us for the other ones that are coming up in the next few weeks. So coming up over the next few weeks, next slide, please, Azan. We have one is on next week, Growth Check Lab, Solving for Growth Hurdles, where you'll get to use our self-diagnostic tool for incubators to take a structured look at your organization's strength, challenges, and opportunities for growth. So this will be with our special advisor, Paul Basil. So if you're interested to get to know more about our self-diagnostic tool, this will be a great session to attend. On July 29th, we have a community hot seat on cultivating financial resilience, where we'll invite some members to share some of their real financial sustainability challenges to the community, and then also ask how they got through them or how they're facing them right now. On August 4th, we'll also be back with another potluck appetizer, giving you another kind of taste of the conversations and sessions coming to our global potluck in Manila this October 5 to 7. So I hope you can join. If you're still considering going to the potluck, now is the sign to maybe attend August 4th and see what is in store for you this October. So again, if today's conversation resonates with you, you can head to our website to explore the full list of upcoming sessions and even sign up for the ones that interest. All right, it brings us to today's session. One of the things we've noticed both through conversations with members, through conversations with other ecosystem partners, and our own research is that incubators and investors often want the same thing, right? Thriving enterprises, healthy ecosystems, more impactful businesses reaching scale. And yet, despite those shared goals, the relationship between incubators and investors can sometimes feel surprisingly distant. Sometimes it's transactional, sometimes it's based on one-off introductions, and sometimes it feels like we're all using the same words, but meaning completely different things. Take the phrase investment ready. I'm sure we've all heard it. It's something that's very common in incubator programs. We use it to say that, we'll get our enterprises investment ready. Same thing for investors. That's what they want, enterprises who are investment ready. But ask 10 investors and 10 incubators what it actually means, and you might get 20 different answers. So rather than assuming we already understand one another, today's session is about creating space to compare perspectives, surface assumptions, and hopefully build stronger relationships that last beyond a single introduction or funding round, because that's what the Build Table is designed to do. This is a new series where we take a challenge we're seeing across the network bring together some light research, member experience, and honest conversation and ask, is this something worth solving together? Today's conversation also helps us explore what a new collective action team or CAT focused on strengthening incubator investor relationships could look like and what it might take on together. So today's discussion won't be the end of the conversation. It's the first chapter of our CAT. And this is our roadmap for today. So we're at the welcome right now. We'll have a quick check-in with Tess. We'll learn more about what a CAT is and a snapshot of the review we've done on incubator investor relationships. We'll also have our wonderful partner, William Davidson Institute, share a little bit about the research related to incubator investor relationships. And then we'll have everybody do the breakout rooms where we'll learn more about your feedback on how we can take this CAT forward. We'll harvest some of those and check out. So our hope today is that you leave not necessarily with all the answers, but with a deeper understanding of how maybe the other side of the table thinks, new relationships to build on, and perhaps even a shared commitment to improving the ecosystem together. Because stronger investor relationships don't just benefit our organizations, they create better outcomes for the entrepreneurs and ultimately the communities we're all here to serve. So let's build that table together. Alrighty, so with that, I will pass this on to Tess, who will take us through our check-in. Tess?
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rod. Hi, everyone. Welcome once again. If you've not yet renamed yourself, we have the renaming details in the chat. My name is Tess. I'm based out of Nairobi, Kenya. I am the network nurturer, and we are here at the build table. And so in the spirit of building, let's start by building a little connection with each other. So we're going to put you in breakout rooms of 2 to 3 people. Please take turns sharing. And in your breakout room, we're going to be answering the question, outside of your work, what's something that you're building, growing, or nurturing? Don't overthink it. Just share whatever comes to mind first. And in your breakout room, because it's just going to be 6 minutes, please give each other ample time to share. And so with that, happy sharing. We've also put the question in the chat. So when you go into a breakout room, you'll still be able to see it. And then we'll be back in 6 minutes. And from then, we'll get to hear a bit about what you've learned with your breakout partner. So with that said, happy sharing. And I'll see you back here in 6 minutes. So whenever we're ready, we can open up.
Ready? Welcome back. We'll just wait for the others to also show up. In about 30 seconds. Welcome back. Hi, Saga.
Hi.
Right, we'll just wait for the others. Alrighty. Welcome back, everybody. Let's test back. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you had a fun time getting to know the people in your breakout rooms, getting to check in. Something that a lot of, well, 3 of us in the breakout room were saying is July is when things kind of pick up for everybody. Closing books or like starting new things. August is also when conference season starts. So hopefully everybody's getting through smoothly. I know it might be a stressful month, but wishing everybody luck to get through the heavy season. All right. Thank you, Tess, for the check-in. I will pass it on over to Soph to get us started, to let us know more a little bit about the collective action teams and then also the literature. Soph, whenever you are ready.
Thanks. All right, thanks very much, Rod. Thank you, Tess, for this wonderful icebreaker. And for those who I haven't met yet, I'm Sophia. I lead the membership at Pollinate Impact. I have the privilege of really getting to know our members from the moment they begin exploring the network through onboarding and basically throughout their journey in the network. And it's wonderful to see so many different kinds of people here today. We have maybe we can mute that person. All good? Okay. So I can see that we have a couple of, investors in the room, incubators, accelerators. Um, when I mean by investors, I can see there's angel investors also who we've invited, family offices and impact investors, and also ecosystem builders from around the world. I'm so delighted to be joined by our friends Yakuta and Rajats from the William Davidson Institute, who will be sharing some fascinating facts and insights from East Africa later on in the session. I feel like there. So at the heart of what we do as a global network at Pollinate Impact, it's really this simple belief. When we connect incubators to each other, they have trusted spaces to learn, solve problems, they build meaningful um, collaborations with each other, strengthen their programs, diversify their revenue streams, they attract talent, and eventually down the line they become more resilient. And one of the ways we bring this to life is through this thing called collective action team or CATS. Um, Sorry, I'm feeling a bit under the weather. So rather than just talking about shared challenges, CATs bring members together to co-design practical solutions, whether that's tools, frameworks, new approaches really that benefit your organization and the wider ecosystem. It's I've been saying this so many times and the team knows this. It's really our fancy way of saying it's a working group. Um, Cats are entirely driven by members' priorities and energy. And for this cat, we're intentionally inviting investors into the room from the very beginning because we're trying to solve incubator and the investor divide, right? And without investors, how it really defeats the purpose, right? We're just talking amongst ourselves in our little incubator, accelerator, or ESO bubble. We believe the strongest solutions are built when both sides of the table help shape them, because we're tackling systemic wide challenges and we can't really solve them in isolation. And if you haven't joined Pollinate Impact yet, you're a non-member incubator, I would love to invite you to book a conversation with me. It would be an opportunity for me to learn more about your organization, understand your goals, and explore how the network can best support you. So it doesn't matter if you're a early stage incubator or a well-established accelerator that's over 20 plus years in the industry, or somewhere in between, you're like 10 years old as an incubator. There's a place for you at Pollinate Impact. Um, so so that's what we do with in the cats. Each cat, let me just share my booking link here. And I know that the marketing team will send this over also after the session. So a little bit about the cats and how it operates. Each one brings around 8 to 12 members who have genuine interest in the challenge. They bring different perspectives and challenge and experiences. They commit the time to contribute consistently for over 4 months and are really collaborative, and they're not afraid to challenge ideas when needed. Each CAT has co-chairs and members. Participation is voluntarily, and it involves 3 to 4 hours per month. So co-chairs help guide the direction of the work of the CAT, and members of the CAT actively contribute to the discussion, right? And us as a secretariat, we take care of the coordination and the logistics so that you can focus on solving the problem. And each CAT runs over a 12-week cycle, meeting at least a couple of times a month, twice a month. For the first CATs, they agreed that their duration will be 15 weeks, and they will meet every 3 weeks. So each CAT has the flexibility to change to shape their own goals, work plan, and outputs, depending on what the CAT believes will create the greatest value. So if today's conversation sparks your interest, you'll have the opportunity to express your interest in joining the CAT later in the session. We call it interest form as opposed to application form, because you're not really applying to be part of the working group. You're just expressing yourself. And so currently for the first CATs, it's now in its final phase. Over the past few months, members have been working with our partner Impact Intelligence to explore how AI can support the screening and selection of entrepreneurs into your programs, right? They've moved from identifying the challenge, what is really the pain points. They screen hundreds of entrepreneurs just to get down to like the 10 per cohort. That's what we've uncovered. They've designed a shared approach, and they're currently building on the proof of concept and using anonymized application data. So they're doing quite a lot. And so because of that, we're also giving some sort of incentive also to our members in being part of that working group. And today we are launching our second collective action team. And this is why we're trying to explore this whole topic. And so I don't want to repeat what Rod said at the beginning, but I've seen a couple of people have just entered when she finished. So what is this second topic about? When we asked our members what challenge they most wanted to solve together, uh, one of the topic rose to the top is how do we help incubated and accelerated ventures become more genuinely attractive to investments. So now, before I dive into the the data, I just have one important clarification. We know that investment isn't the right destination for every entrepreneur. So depending on the venture stage, business model, ambitions, and of course the local market realities and the context that they operate in, there are grants, there are, debt financings, there's revenue-based financings, they can also bootstrap themselves. And it's far more appropriate for many of the entrepreneurs, right? But this CAT is not saying that every entrepreneur should raise capital. It's rather about, how can we better support the entrepreneurs who are seeking investments, and how can we strengthen the relationship between incubators and investors along the journey. But before we design the solutions, it is important for us to take a step back and ask, and understand the problem first. And so for the past 1 year, we did two things. The first one is we listened to not just our member incubators, but also other incubators and accelerators in the ecosystem through our elephant in the room conversations, which is what we ran alongside Sandculp last year in East Africa, Kenya. And then we scanned the literature to see whether what our members were experiencing was really, was reflected more broadly across not just Africa, but in the global south. And then later on, Yakuta from the William Davidson Institute, she will share insights from their research of ESOs in East Africa. And so let us begin. So the first insight is that invest are we really like, from both our elephant in the room sessions and the literature, the pattern, there is the same pattern and it keeps appearing. Incubators optimize for entrepreneur development, investors optimize for investment returns, and then donors optimize for development outcomes. Why the donors are here? Because they're mostly funding ESOs, and ESOs are heavily um, grant dependent, and donors actually have such an influence in the program's development and therefore the outcomes of the programs. So everyone is well intentioned, but they're pulling in different directions, right? So this actually became the central finding of the paper that we put together. And so we'll actually send this paper over to you all so you can have a in-depth reading and reflection, and feel free to comment and help us fine-tune this paper. And so if we're not aligned, what exactly are we trying to prepare entrepreneurs for? Um, and so we found out, investment readiness has no universal definition. This was really the strongest finding that we've had. Different investors themselves admitted that they have different investment theses. And the literature confirms it, right? Every investor has their own mandate. They have ticket sizes, right? Their risk appetite is also different, and they have different timelines. And meanwhile, incubators are expected to prepare founders for all of them. By the way, when I say incubators, that also it's inclusive of accelerators, ESOs, and venture builders. So ESOs meaning entrepreneur support organizations in the global south. And so, a lot of people seem to think that incubators should prepare founders for all of the different kinds of investors. And that's really an impossible uh, belief. We don't have one finish line. We realize that there are many. And because everyone defines investment readiness differently, evaluating ventures is also not the same. Which brings us to the third point. Incubators and investors are not really speaking the same languages. This is one of the most striking tension in both the practitioners conversation we had, and also the literature, is that incubators, they celebrate the demo day, they celebrate the graduation. Investors, right, they see the prototypes, they see the potential, but neither side is wrong. They're just measuring success differently. The research also uncovered another, important disconnect, is that incubators spend enormous effort preparing documentation and organizing demo days and networking sessions, but investors rely on warm introductions. They rely on trusted referrals from other investors and long-term relationships. They're and so these different groups, right, they're optimizing for completely different things. So perhaps the missing ingredient isn't another pitch deck. Is it, is it really the stronger relationship between the two groups? And and so this is what we found. One of the strongest themes from both practitioners and literature is that investor engagement happens too late in the process. Most investors describe themselves as a plus one in the party. They're invited at demo days, pitch nights, graduation, whatever you call this in the other where you are in the part of the world. Not so investors are mostly not invited to the program design. And research consistently shows though that there are stronger outcomes when investors are involved in the much earlier phases of the incubation and acceleration programs. And and trust develop over time when this happens, right? And it's really encouraging that this shift is already happening, and the literature really gave us hope. Many ecosystems in the global south have recognized the same challenge. And instead of waiting for the demo day to involve and invite investors, they bring in the investors right during the 6 months or 3 months or even 12 months incubation acceleration programs. They start building the investor relationship early on. The involvement through mentorship, right, to and many different things. And I know that it can be difficult to deal with investors. They're very data driven, and soft skills may be absent for many. But I might be generalizing this, but it's something that we can reflect on later during the breakout session. So the overall thought is the future isn't about creating one perfect definition of investment readiness. Maybe the goal isn't, preparing every entrepreneur for every investor. It's, maybe it's helping the right entrepreneur supported by the right incubator connected to the right investor at the right time. So we need to define what this right is. When is the sweet spot? So I want to invite Yakuto from WDI to share her insights from the research that she has done on East African ESOs last year. Yakuto?
Yeah, thanks, Sophia. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I work at the William Davidson Institute at the University of Michigan. I'm based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I have many of my colleagues on the call as well, so hopefully you'll interact with them in the breakout rooms. I'm going to keep this really short and sweet. We did research last year focused on Enterprise Support Organizations or ESOs in East Africa. And what we did a little bit differently than the typical literature review was we actually started out with a stakeholder analysis and identified all the different key stakeholders in the ecosystem, and then actually went out and did interviews and did qualitative research with those different stakeholder groups. So, of course, in those stakeholder groups, you have the ESOs themselves as well as the investors. And because this call is focused very much on ESO investor relationships, I'll only focus on those pieces of the research today. And I'll stick in the link after I finish speaking. I'll stick in the link to the report so you can see the full report and the full set of findings across the different stakeholders. But what I'm going to jump right in again, just in the interest of time. When we talk to ESOs, there were three key insights that I want to share today on the call. So the first one, Sophia, definitely, she cracked the nut, right? Like very much different investors have different investment readiness definitions. And so what ends up happening is because of that, the ESOs are now trying to cater to multiple investors. And because of that, they are actually focusing their investment readiness training on and they end up helping just the early stage entrepreneurs create visually appealing pitch decks, improve their presentations, get them ready for demo days. Now that is helpful to like first time entrepreneurs. It helps them with developing their self-confidence, developing their presentation skills, but that does not necessarily mean that investors are impressed with those entrepreneurs. They don't see them as investment ready again. So it's really like, once you have different definitions, it means that the ESOs are trying to cater to all, which does not help. And instead of bespoke programming, they're just doing generic programming, right? So very much a feature of the system is generic programming when there's so much information asymmetry. In addition to that, something different from what Sophia has mentioned already is that there's actually skepticism around the term impact investing. So when you talk to ESOs, but even when you talk to the entrepreneurs that were part of our research, what we found was that impact investing is itself the misnomer, right? So a lot of investors, they prioritize financial returns and risks, and then impact considerations actually take a secondary, or they're on the back burner, or they're superficial. And so what ends up happening is that this lack of clarity makes it even more difficult for ESOs to then tailor their programming effectively, right? So it's not just what is investment ready, it's like, are you really accounting for impact? Should we include impact measurement? How should we get our entrepreneurs to talk about their story, etc.? How should we help them paint that full picture? And then the third point I want to talk from the ESO's point of view is that what also ends up happening is that ESOs are, and Sophia alluded to this, right? So donors are a key piece in this entrepreneurship ecosystem. And yes, they are optimizing for supporting the ESOs or providing grants to the ESOs. But what ends up happening is that sometimes they flex their power and they ask the ESO to actually move programming. So the ESOs that had, say, for example, deep relationships in one sector are being shifted to another sector. So we've heard this at Sankalp, like if the ESO was in the ag space, they were asked to shift to the tech space. And then what happens is they don't necessarily have those deep, long relationships, right? Because a lot of this is relationship based, even between ESO and investor. Because when you talk to the entrepreneurs, they're saying, we really want access to networks. We want the investors to introduce us. Sorry, we want the ESOs are saying we want sorry, it's really early morning. What I'm trying to say is that the entrepreneurs are saying we want the ESOs to introduce us to investors, as Sophia alluded, right? Investors are working on warm introductions, but the ESOs themselves don't know that network. They don't have that strong network. They don't have those deep long-term connections with investors. And so that's also where things break down. And part of this, it's not just on the donors and the ESOs. Part of this is also what we heard is also that the investors, they lack the time or resources for sustained engagement with the ESOs, right? So it's not just on one stakeholder group. And this is true of life, I feel. It's like always very complex, right? So in addition, you also have very high staff turnover within ESOs that can disrupt relationships. And so when you have departing employees, they take their investor connections with them. So those were the three key points from the ESO point of view. It's like one, investor readiness definitions are different. So ESOs are trying to cater to too many investors at the same time, creating generic programming. Two, there's skepticism around the term impact investing itself. And so there's further information asymmetry. And three, that the ESOs don't actually have those long-term connections to then be able to create those deep networks for their entrepreneurs. And that is not just on the ESOs, that's also on the investors because they don't have the time and resources to support sustained engagement. Now, I want to talk about it from the investor point of view. So what do you hear when you talk to investors? In our research, we found that they're saying, hey, look, there is quantity in the pipeline, but it's not quality, right? So they find that the companies that are graduating from ESO programs, they often lack preparedness for detailed discussion on financial management and key technical areas such as product market fit and customer acquisitions. So that's what investors want. They want hard numbers, they want to see income statements, they want to understand what is the financial story behind this particular company. And that's what they find is lacking, right? So many companies cannot provide the data needed to demonstrate a clear path to scaling. And that's what they want the ESOs to support the entrepreneurs with. There's also then this next finding that I wanted to share is that there's also significant cultural differences in pitching styles that exist in African markets. There's different cultures across African markets. Now, I know this research is focused on East Africa, but we did speak to a couple of folks in West Africa as well who highlighted this difference. And also, so even within the continent, I know we talk about Africa in a very generic way, but it is over 50 countries with their own unique cultures, right? And then when you add in investors coming in from the global north, whether that's the US or Europe or even Oceania's countries, right? It's really that they don't understand each other's culture, and so there's a lot of biases that come with that situation, and including and while the research really focused on the entrepreneurship, or rather the entrepreneur to investor kind of cultural differences, we see that also in how ESOs and investors are working together, right? Because that cultural difference is very much the space it applies there as well. And then the third thing that I really wanted to highlight, there's many other things, but what I also wanted to highlight is that yes, there is absolutely superficial engagement. There is transactional interactions. It goes back to that third point that you hear from ESOs, right? Like we don't have those sustained engagement with investors. And so what's happening is that you do see it from the investor point of view as well, is that they have these one-off conversations with ESOs, but it's a larger problem across the ecosystem as well, where ESOs, investors, and donors, they're having these one-off conversations. There's no cadence in that conversation, and hence it doesn't really result in any tangible outcomes. So there's very limited dialogue, and then limited dialogue is often the result of course, constrained resources, and also buy-in from leadership, right? So these are all pieces that are tied together, and you hear this from the investor side as well. So it's not just the ESOs, but the investors are also acknowledging this. And so because of these, what ends up happening is when you have these one-off conversations that lack cadence, that lack long-term relationship building, you actually end up with a significant trust deficit that exists definitely between the investors and the ESOs, but also in the larger ecosystem. And then that trust deficit, it hinders effective dialogue, it hinders co-creation, all the good stuff that Sophia talked about, and it hinders meaningful relationship building as well. And so what ends up happening is collaboration is very limited. And then what happens is that the partnerships also, they don't really kind of get optimized, using Sophia's language. And there's a lot to say about how do you build really good partnerships, right? And there are groups that are working on this, about how do you partner differently. And I'll also drop the link to a paper that we've come across at WDI on building better partnerships from Business Fights Poverty, that really highlights about you have to think about incentives for each stakeholder group, and how do you make sure those incentives are realized? And then how do you actually ensure that the partnership is built on shared value along with incentives? So I'll pause there. I wanted to show 3 insights from the ESO point of view, 3 insights from the investor point of view, and then I wanted to close around we need to partner better. But happy to answer any questions. I'll drop the links in the chat, and I will hand it over to Rod.
Thank you. Thanks, Sakuta. Thanks, Sophia. I think those are really interesting insights, a lot to think about, and I think a lot that we can actually, there's a lot of opportunity, right, to do collective action on together. So maybe to get our brain together here in the room, can we start with this one? So we heard from both Sophia and Yakuta, and from everything you just heard, is there any idea, tension, or question that stayed with you the most? So I'll give everybody a minute to type it out in the chat. Don't send yet. We'll send it all together. And again, it could be something you agreed with. Maybe there's a question there, something you want to explore further, just something that stayed with you after all the discussions. So we'll send this all at the same time. I'll give everybody a minute to think about what they wanted. They can put it on the chat. And then I will say Waterfall, and then we'll all send the chat together. So yeah, I'll give everybody a minute to do that. 45 seconds. Twenty seconds. Almost 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oops, sorry, go ahead. You can send. Great, thank you, everybody. Let's read through some of these. Thanks, George. I see Sean's question. The tension being there's currently more finance available for entrepreneurs across a range of instruments. However, the missing middle can now include funding and finance available to ESOs, as that is disappearing at an alarming rate. Thus, entrepreneurs can't access the new finance. Who pays to connect the dots or build the bridge? Great point. Again, feel free to come in, Yakuta and Sophia, if you see anything that you resonate with, you like from the comments. Thanks, everybody. This is a wealth of comments and feedback. Thank you so much. James, from the investor point of view, is mostly on the money, and that actually makes it more difficult in emerging market ecosystems where risks are magnified by market conditions. So higher risk in these kind of market conditions. Incubators need an ecosystem approach for follow-on support to enterprises. Investors are too target-driven, especially if it's government funding or CSI funding. How do we ensure that ESOs are engaging extensively with the right type of investors and ensure that they are preparing businesses for the right type of investors? Great questions, great comments. Thanks, everybody. Sophia, you put anything here that resonated with you? Anything that you maybe want to talk a little bit more about from the comments? Might also be reading. So while everybody takes the time to enjoy our wealth of comments, thank you again. I am now opening the floor, inviting everybody. If you are interested in joining the CAT, this is the QR code for the interest form that Sophia mentioned at the start of this call. So you may send us your interest to join, and we will also be sending it through the chat. Thank you, Alanis, for sending it over. Again, this is open to everyone for you to join. Again, for those who aren't members yet of Pollinate Impact, membership is required to be part of the CAT if you are an incubator, and Sophia will take you through those steps. So if you do put your interest through the form, you'll be taken through those steps with her there to guide you. For investors, of course, we'd also love to have you as part of the CAT, as again, you are one of the other side of the group that we'd love to kind of work with to strengthen the relationship. So we'd also love to have you as part of this, and you can apply or put your interest through the form. I see Yakuta has raised her hand. Yakuta, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I think this reflects in the comments, right? Is that, and we found this in the research as well when we did this last year, is that everyone is very, very, very hyper aware of the challenges. And it really was, and we had hoped that what the research would show is that the challenges themselves are interconnected and that people are speaking past each other. And so it's really about, okay, we know the challenges, what next, right? And how do we actually implement the solutions? And the research also actually the focus on the solutions. I haven't talked about that much over here on this call, but you'll find that in the report about examples of solutions where ESOs did work closely with impact investors. And going back to what Sophia said, right? One example was an impact investor who came much earlier into the design phase with the ESO. So in the selection of entrepreneurs and enterprises, but also in the design of the actual curriculum. And so there are solutions out there. We're in fact continuing to document solutions. If there is a solution that you have implemented with your investor, or vice versa, please share that on the call right now, so that we can document it, but also learn from how you're doing it, because it's easy to talk about the challenges. The real excitement, the co-creation, the innovation is around how do you solve for this, right? So I'll pause there.
Really great point. Thanks, Yakuta. Thank you, everybody. All right, so you all have the link, you all have the QR code, no pressure. We will now proceed to our breakouts. So this is really where we'd love to get your feedback. We'd love to get what you've learned also from what has been shared. I know we've shared a little bit on the chat, but this is really a time to get to talk to your group mates also, one on how much did what Yakuta and Sophia covered align with your own experiences and even tensions around creating and sustaining relationships. So whether you're an investor, an incubator, or even if you don't fall within these two groups, what have you seen? What do you think is missing or needs deeper exploration? And then lastly, I think most importantly, because we know this is to build a CAT, what action steps can we take on as a collective that is feasible within a 3 to 4 month timeline, right? There's so much to do, but again, there is something that we can do already within this timeline. So what are like the feasible action steps that we can take together collectively to kind of strengthen the relationships between incubators and investors? All right, so I will also put this in the chat so that everybody has a copy of the questions. While you all think, we will now proceed to our breakout rooms. We'll take about maybe 8 to 10 minutes to talk to each other. We'll have somebody to help facilitate each of the breakout groups, and then we'll come back, harvest a little bit of the insights, and then we'll check out. All right, so Azan, Kavya, anytime we are ready, we can proceed to the breakout.
1 second, Rod, just give me a minute, please.
No worries. I hope that is clear for everybody. Welcome back, everybody. I'm sorry. I'm sure we were all in the middle of a conversation before we came back. Thank you so much for those who have shared. I'm sorry we didn't have enough time to have everybody speak. There are a lot of great ideas within the group, so maybe we can take a few minutes just to have some of the people share within their groups what they found interesting, any insights or anything that they feel like, oh, this is a great idea for us to take forward within the next 3 to 4 months as a collective action team. So I'd love to open up the floor for any insights, ideas that you have that you'd love to bring up to the group. And while we do that, yes, please go ahead.
Allow me to come in. I had a fantastic group of about 7 people. I'm going to be sharing a bit of the conversation, and dear team, in case I miss out on anything, please come in and share. So I think our group had researchers, it had incubators, it had people who've done work with investors and have actually dug deep into some of these challenges. And so 3 to 4 months seems like a bit of a short time, is one of the sentiments that I got. But if we were to use this 3 to 4 months, what would we do? Some people in my group feel as though we could collect more information. We could spend more time convening these 2 parties. And I think something that was also pretty interesting is how can we create some form of, I say database, but probably that's not the best word. But the bigger question is when mandates
Sorry, I think we lost Tess. Is it my internet? Yeah. Tess, we might have lost you. Give her a few seconds. In case any of Tess's groupmates want to take over, you're welcome to as well. Okay, while maybe we wait for Tess to come back, I just launched the feedback form. If you can please help us answer this, it'll be greatly appreciated to help us improve our sessions as we move forward. So thank you so much. And maybe while we wait for Tess, I would love for my group, if anybody wants to come in and share a little bit. I can share, but like if anybody wants to do it, I'd be happy for you to kind of share a little bit of your insights. We had a great conversation. Sean, Nakia, James, Victor. Yeah.
Rod, to save you the airspace. And yeah, we had a really diverse group as well, which was good from the impactor and finance perspective, from the funder and donor perspective, and then from challenges as an enterprise support organization. It's the one takeaway, or like the big thing, is the appetite to have the conversation is there. And I honestly don't think it was there a few years ago, or as many stakeholders and actors were actively participating that there was a meaningful conversation to have. I think the thing I've been reflecting on is the missing middle on the right-hand side of the finance equation is starting to be solved, in terms of there is pots of money there for entrepreneurs to access, and it's becoming more attuned to the global south rather than sort of Silicon Valley-esque VC capital and all sexy, shiny, not really appropriate for the markets that we're dealing with. So that those conversations will take a lot more time, and it will take, I think, that to the name of today's conversation around, it's the dynamic that needs to shift a little bit around who has the money and how that's spent, and how do we create sort of the systems and structures and have a conversation where what's the right way to say it, that's influenced by multiple different stakeholders rather than the people with the money. And it was my colleague Rakia was talking about, as a funder, they provide lots of different types of finance, and there's sort of grant, then there's repayable grant, and then that starts to move you into proper business commercial finance. And being able to see that transition for entrepreneurs is really exciting, because I think as you move to the more commercial finance, you can then start to charge entrepreneurs, which is then ESOs have a burden to be able to start charging appropriately for services. So they should be moving and escalating along that pathway as well. But again, they're really excited to look at the wider conversation and building the network across Pollinate's members. I hope I did that justice, Rod, and everyone else.
Yes, thank you so much, Sean. No, appreciate it. I think that was really great. I think one thing that I'll just add is we did have an investor in our group. James also did mention that, ideas on action steps could be conversations around what work together around like validation steps within the enterprises. So like validating different kinds of data that would be essential for the investors, and same for the incubator, so that we could bridge this gap of the investment ready measure or metric that we have. So that could be an idea as well. I'd love to turn over to Yakuta. She raised her hand.
Yeah, we had a really good conversation as well, and this is collectively, like, different speakers talked about different ideas, but very much along the lines of when we talk about relationship building, right? I think what the sector is seeing is that more ESOs are now thinking of their own fund, like they're thinking of providing funding and setting up funding models to entrepreneurs. And then on the flip side, you have investors who are setting up incubation houses, right? So maybe there is something that can be learned from those experiences as well. And then also you have, because there is so much turnover at different ESOs, and yes, they often go to another ESO, but they also often go to the investor side, right? After 2, 3 years of experience with incubation, they move over to the investor side. So how do we leverage those situations as well to kind of help us understand this, understand the space better in terms of the language that is being used, in terms of what investor ready means. And I think a third point that really stood out for me was one of the incubators was talking about how they use a diagnostic with their enterprises to then help them identify the right investor, so the right fit at the right time that Sophia was talking about at the beginning. And they do a lot of internal learning. And I think that was another interesting model, right? You develop a diagnostic, help ESOs develop a diagnostic with input from investors, of course. Can't be done in a silo, and then use that for active learning. And then just one last point, right? What I think is really important, what even when Sean, you were talking, is that one of the speakers said, look, we're a small team and we're expected to understand what impact investors want and are saying in their language. And that takes a lot of bandwidth. And we're trying to support enterprises. That's the actual job as well, right? So it would really help for these type of collective spaces to do that heavy lifting, so that smaller incubators, accelerators can then focus on the enterprises as well. And I want to make one shameless pitch on behalf of my colleague, Gagan, who's here, because he's an impact investor for the last 20 years, like a banker, right? And so he's put together a training for enterprises, but we're looking to partner with ESOs on this investment readiness. And I'll pause here so maybe he can speak.
So thank you, Yakuta, and for putting this out. So good evening, everyone. Just, I have pasted that link there. I think it will give a lot of information about the investor readiness program that we've just curated. I have been doing these in my past avatar over the last 8-10 years. So we can customize this based on the type of enterprises that we're targeting, or the sector focus as well. So happy to chat with you. My email address is also there on the web page. We can always have a separate conversation on how we can bring this to your cohort of enterprises. Thank you, Yakuta.
Thanks, Gagan. Thank you. And maybe shameless plug on my end. So Gagan, one of the sessions we're having for the potluck this year in Manila is exactly this, around the investment readiness research that WDI is doing. So if you'd like to be involved in that, that'll be happening in Manila in October. So we'd love to welcome all of you. Anyway, enough of our shameless plugs. Maybe last few thoughts, if anybody has any more insights that they'd love to share to the group before we end. Again, we'd love to take this on as a CAT, so we'd really love your ideas on what angles we could look for in like a short time frame, but something that's effective for most of us here. So if you have any ideas, now is a good time to share. Right, going once, going twice. All right, if none for now, I think it might be time for everybody to kind of digest what we've heard. Also think about wanting to join the CAT. Again, we welcome anybody who would like to join the CAT, especially our members here, to be part of what the CAT will look like. As Sophia mentioned, what kind of actions it will take will be determined by the actual CAT group. So if you'd love to be involved there, that will be much appreciated. We of course want to welcome investors to join the CAT as well, as that is a very important perspective that we'd love to have while this CAT is going on. But for now, thank you again, everybody, for joining us for today. I think this is a really great conversation. I wish we had more time. I think this is just a brewing conversation, and I'm glad, as Sean mentioned, that it's something that more people are having now. There's more opportunities for for us to have conversations like this. And as we mentioned, this is just the start of the conversation of the CAT and conversations around this topic. So I hope you join us throughout the collective action teams. And maybe I'll turn it over to Soph for any last reminders or announcements. Sophia?
Thanks, Rod. So I just want to mention we'll only follow up with the people who fill the interest form on the next steps. So if you're interested, make sure you submit it. The deadline is a day before the kickoff, which the kickoff is in 2 weeks' time. The kickoff, so we have it's a two-part kickoff session. We'll go into more detail about the time commitment, the roles, the expectations during that kickoff, and we'll also sort of do it's not really a workshop, but we will help narrow down the challenge statements that we will solve with each other. Just like what we did with the first CAT, right? There, how do we integrate AI in the whole screening and selection process, and where is it? Like the first pass screening? Is it like the jury screening? Which part? And so everybody in the CAT wanted, to integrate AI in the first pass screening. So we're going to do a similar thing. And so yes, the deadline is on 28th of July. It will allow us a little bit more time, one day, to process it before the kickoff session. So I hope you're available. The interest form will ask for your availability as well for the two-part kickoffs. And yeah, in short, fill out the interest form and stay tuned for the follow-ups and get ready to collaborate. It's really fun to work with others, different stakeholders all over the world. All right, go ahead. I'll pass it over to you, Rod.
Thank you. Thanks, Sophia, and thanks, everybody. Thank you to everybody who shared their time and their thoughts today. We're so excited to launch this CAT. Just as a quick share, we were supposed to launch this CAT last year, and it kind of didn't take off yet. We're glad that now there's more momentum and more opportunity as more people are interested in joining it. So we're so happy to have more people here with us. So hopefully see you at the kickoff. But for now, thank you so much for your insights and your time. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.